and welcome back to the channel. So in today's video I want to do something a little bit shorter, but it's a little technique that I found using some new fancy products, these AK paint pens, which I think have a really good use, and that's for painting MDF buildings. In front of you I have two English Civil War style 15mm Sarissa kits, so like timber framed buildings, and again quite small, as you can see, not that large. Painting terrain is not something I particularly enjoy. I think it needs a lot of different techniques compared to figure painting, using larger brushes and getting that tone on flat surfaces, and it's something I usually put off. Now I'm actually putting on a epic pike and shot game at Broadside Show, which is a Wargames show in Gillingham this June, and obviously as part of that I need terrain, I need buildings, and it's something I wanted to do quite quickly. Now I must admit, this is not an original idea. I did nick this off Facebook, but these four colours, so blue rowel, brown, off-white and red brown, take a building like this to a building like that very quickly. So what is actually a paint pen? There's slightly different versions, but I'm only going to cover the AK ones here. So they are literally felt tips that use paint. It's rather odd in that I feel like I'm colouring in a building, but I'll go through how I've managed to get the buildings looking like this, using something that you can actually do sitting down on the sofa. You don't need to be set up at the painting desk. Also, it's really quick drying. You don't need to wash your brushes. You don't need to then dry them off or squat out the paint, thin it down. It's just grab and go, really, which is really nice and simple. And I think it's a technique that, as I'll go on to the end of the video, has some uses outside of this very specific style of building. So I'm going to do a very quick how-to using these four colours to go from this to this. So the first step is actually to start by painting the windows blue. Now, while this is actually the smallest part colour-wise of the buildings, the reason I start off with it is because these are recessed, and as you can see, the nibs on these are not particularly fine, so you will get parts within the panels. You can see these little side panels. You don't actually need to be massively neat, because you can go over it with the brown, and then also it's a 15mm building. You don't need to be hugely neat. It's all about the effect. And for me, as someone who doesn't massively enjoy doing terrain but appreciates how much a good board makes a war game, getting the terrain done quickly but effectively is what you want to do. So there's not really a particular way to use it. You just kind of colour in. There's good coverage. You go into the recesses, just kind of take it along. And as you know, this is not undercoated, and that's part of the finish we get with these paint pens. You're technically supposed to, it says on here, please, can be applied on other layers, use primer. Well, this is actually, you don't need to. I'd also say as well, with MDF, there's not really the risk of chipping like there is with metal and resin models, so you don't need to worry so much. But yeah, so I'm not going to paint this whole model on stream, because once I've painted one window, well, you kind of know how the rest go. But what I'll do is I'll do this section of the house, and there we are. So there's the windows, very quickly done from afar. Okay, next up, we're going to go for the plastered panels, which we're going to use off-white. It's RCM 002. Now this one, as you can see, there is a small wooden panel and then some plaster there, so you just need to be a little bit careful, but it's the perfect size, really. So as you'll know, it will dry. It won't be a full coverage. Again, you're painting white onto an unprimed surface, but that's actually part of the effect, as you'll see later, because with the wood, the actual physical wood, the MDF, coming through a little bit gives it that sort of textural element that you'd be missing otherwise if it came on as a flat surface. Now, I've seen some particularly experienced terrain modelers build up that plaster element that using polyfiller or other techniques or ways, but for 15mm you have to be quite careful to not overdo it, and particularly with this style of building you don't want to obscure these wood panel lines, this timber frame, which is a really big part of the look, at least for me. So instead what we'll do is we'll just go through these panels, and I kind of almost as you would with colouring in, you go around the outside first. You don't need to use the nib of the brush. I have found that the nibs have gone. I've painted 3 buildings so far, and the point hasn't stayed pointy, for want of a better phrase. But you can see there that it's not 100%. I do a second coat, but even then, once we've done a second coat, it won't be completely through. Okay, so the second coat is on, and it looks a little bit better coverage, but it's still not perfect, and that is the look I really want to get. Now, it's hard when it's only just a few panels, but to give you a sense of what it looks like, this is the whole building completely done, and I've only done 2 coats of the off-white, but it adds that nice texture element. But then again, not having primed the MDF, there's that natural, very slight texture, which I think, yeah, the 3-foot wall on the table, that looks fantastic. Anyway, so the penultimate one is red brown. Now this is RCM 19, and again RAL 8012. The reason I'm saying that is on the website I found there was 2 red browns. Again, slightly different codes, but same colour name. And I knew I needed a red brown. I didn't know what tone, so I ordered both. This one here is the terracotta colour that I really want for the tiles. So tiles, I actually really enjoyed painting these because you can just use the side of the pen, let's get a bit so it doesn't shine so much, and you just go like this, because that way you still get the little recesses that have been put in for the tiles, but this colour really covers well. So what I can also show you is there's a few areas like the MDF joins, so the edge of the MDF where it's been laser cut, obviously it's a bit burnt, so that darker colour. So you want to pick them out, and again just doing the underside here. And if you don't move the pen a lot, quite a lot of paint comes out, which is what you want, because again, having not primed, they're going to take a little bit more coverage, and you don't want that showing through for the tile effect. For the wood, absolutely works well, and the plaster, but for this, because there isn't actually any wood material being represented, you don't want that showing through. But again, it's really simple, as I'm just mumbling on here. That second coat's ready just to be put on there and there, and it's almost perfect coverage, which is just what you want. And there we are. I also will do the whole chimney. I think this is the area needing for improvement, because this is supposed to be a brick chimney, but obviously with the pens you're just doing it one flat colour. Again, this is what it looks like here. You could, if you're feeling really artsy, get a fine liner and do some brickwork there. But again, at the 3-foot rule, I think that's fine. If anything, I'd worry that doing the individual bricks would look too much. And again, I don't trust my ability to draw straight lines. So, on to the final colour, which is the timber frame itself. So the final colour is RCM 007. It's not James Bond, it's brown. Unsurprisingly for a timber. And you just want to go over, this one can be difficult to see where you've actually painted because it's very similar to the MDF colour, but it does, trust me, make a difference, particularly once you've gone over quite a lot of the model. And these are the smallest and most fiddly bits. But again, if you go slightly over onto the white plaster, don't worry too much. You can always very quickly touch it up. And the other thing to do as well with this is, because that blue, as you can see, is leaked over a little bit in the window ledges, just to go over it like that. It's not going to look fantastic from this angle, but once it dries, it gives that much needed effect. And also just to go up here to catch this bit here. Again, this is probably the stage that takes the longest, just because you have to be a little careful. As you can see, I've gone over the line a little bit there, but you can't massively see it. Again, I'm all about the table effect with this terrain. I'm not going to win any painting awards, and I'm not here to win any painting awards. But it's a very quick way. I think I've basically done this part of the building in about 5 minutes. So in classic Blue Peter fashion, here's some we did earlier. These are the 3. So these 2 are from the town set with the building I was painting earlier. And this one is the kind of small gatehouse that comes with the starter set and the manor house here, which needs to be painted. But again, using this technique shouldn't take too long. I'm really happy with this as a use for the paint pens. They're £2 each. Well, at least I paid £2 each from Great Escape Games. I'll put a link in the description below. And for £8, it's a really quick way to get these painted up. I was painting them on the sofa watching some telly, just very casually, in the same way you'd sit and read a book, scroll on your phone, do a crossword, which is really nice sometimes to not have to always be in whatever space you use for your painting, be that the kitchen table or a study or a games room if you're lucky enough. So that's really good. I also think these paint pens aren't going to take over painting. As you saw, they're too thick to really do any fine details. I mean, here's a stand of Epic Cavalry that I've been painting, and there's no way you could get the paint pens to work for them at all. But there are some uses outside of this very specific type of terrain. So looking at bigger pieces of terrain, here is a 28mm Italian building that I painted with some cheaper paints. You can see that the edging of the roof has got a bit chipped and battered. But I've put some textures, I used texture paint for this, which is kind of needed at this scale. But you could certainly use the paint pen for these to get a bit more detail. It's a bit easier to paint that way. And again, on the roof tiles, if you undercoat this, because this is card rather than MDF, and then use the paint pens, you could get that real texture to it as well. Another use would be German hard edge camouflage, particularly on larger models, but as a base coat, it would be a really great way to get them covered and get them started, rather than having to use a brush, which can, you have to water down your paint, get it to a right consistency. So there's certainly uses for these paint pens. I'd recommend people have a try with them, particularly with MDF terrain, and hopefully you find use out of this hobby hack as well. That's the Wargamer of Kent, signing out.